Okay, let's move on to part three. And there is a certain significance of the slash Etsy directory. That is where all your configuration files are going to go for really any service or a program that requires listening. Any server type program like Samba, Apache 2, or anything like that, that is going to have configuration files. The configuration files tells the server what to do and what to listen for and what port to listen for, such as if you install Apache 2, which is an improvement over HTTPD, which was always the Unix classic web server, which Microsoft would try to copy with IIS or Internet Information Services. Generally, the HTTP version uses port 80. That's where that would be defined. Or if you're using you're using the more secure version of HTTP, that would use port 443. This is where you define all of this. So if you installed Samba, as your domain controller server, the where you set your files to share and everything, that would go also in the samba.conf file, and that would be in the Etsy folder as well. So there is a method to all the madness, as you can see, the madness, quote unquote, of the Linux and Unix filing system. That being said, of course, the Etsy rslog.d, that would go into the configuration files would naturally go into the Etsy directory. So this just asks you to take a look at the last 20 lines of the rslog.config.conf file, and it asks you to look at the last 20 lines because we're using the tail command. Now, if you use the head command, that would look at the first few lines, and if we just said tail and then this and ignore the N20 dash N20, that is the default. The default, I think, is 10. Here it's just asking us to look at the last 20 lines. Okay, now we can write to the 60-lab configuration file just by copying and pasting this information. So if we, for example, if I just catted 60, if I just ran the streamer cat against this, we would actually get all this information here. So all you have to do is copy and paste this. Here we're going to reload it. And the other thing I wanted to point to you is that 514, it asks you to receive UDP and TCP syslog. This is the classic or traditional port number that syslog uses. So when we run this, what we're doing is we're asking it to restart the remote syslog, okay? And then this command right here, okay? And let me just put that in just so we can concentrate and focus on that. It's asking us to take a look to print out, and this ensures that it's going to print out the connections that match the 514. That is the port 514. So if we go ahead and run it, all right, it's going to show that it's listening for any connection on 514, both for IPv4 and for IPv6. Okay, now it asks us to send a test message right here. And here, let's just do this right now. Let's just ask this so it's literally going to ask us to send just a text message. Okay, and then it's going to look or match against that. Okay, so we have to give it some time. Okay, and we can forward it from a second virtual machine if we wanted to. Okay, and so and then okay, so that's it for part 3. We can then move on to part 4, and as I said, this is the information that was sent here. So we have the fact that the log has seen this, which is what we want. And as I said, we're going to move on to part 4.